Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are here on Connect to Thrive Morning Reflections. I am Jen and my co host Theano are here. And today we're discussing a topic that we call White Picket Fence Misery. So, Theano, good morning, 7 a.m.
Good morning. Great to be here.
All right, so let's jump into it. I'm gonna introduce it this way. One of my favorite British shows is a show called Keeping Up Appearances. I actually don't know if you're familiar with it,
No,
but
actually,
it was all about a couple in British society in terms of her last name was spelled Bucket, but she always pronounced it Mrs. Bouquet. And everybody would come around and say bucket, and her face would be like, oh, it is bouquet. And the whole show was about her keeping up appearances. And it was just a delight. It went on for many years, but it was one of my favorite shows. You should look it up
I
afterwards. But that is essentially the topic of today, is really all the facades that we put out externally and what it takes to keep those things up,
yeah.
and just all the effort. So with that, I'll pass it to you to just to continue that piece. Go on.
No, it's a great topic to discuss. Like when we were brainstorming ideas, like this is one of the ones that, got really juicy for me because, so many times all of us, in some way or another, are putting up a white picket fence, right? And the more it's the time, the energy, the effort it takes to hold up these facades, rather than dealing with the real issues and allowing ourselves to really create the relationships or the life we want by being more authentic. Like we get caught up in the what others, we want others
Mhm.
to perceive us as instead of stepping into what's real, which creates better connections in our relationships and life and, in all areas of our life actually are impacted.
But sometimes it isn't even just keeping it up. So some people are striving for that. There's still people out there who believes in this, white picket fence life, and I don't know, to what degree that's realistic. It's no different than we say perfectionism isn't reality. I don't think white picket fence living is a reality, right? Like there's no cleavers, right? You know what I mean? Everybody's got something.
We
And
do. And I think it's when you're striving so much outside of yourself, it's really taking pause to reflect on what are you lacking so much inside that you're chasing or, putting that, I'm going to say dangling carrot because it's something that you keep striving for rather than looking at what is, right?
and also believing that everyone doesn't sense it. You may not know for sure, but sometimes you do sense it as well when it's a facade that's being put up. And I think, especially today now after COVID, I think a lot of people are looking for authenticity, and they're looking for connections, authentic connections. So, to what degree that will, how that will play out in a number of years is going to be interesting. But I'm more thinking on the just the whole effort, right? Like we talked about, even when we were talking about it, we mentioned things like time, money, energy, all of these things that it takes to even maintain this. And how do you even keep track of what you've said to one person after another, depending on what that thing is that you're so protecting, right? So how do you get caught up? I just think it just takes so much energy as well. So
Well, yeah, and it takes so much energy, and it's also like what are you real I don't know, I keep coming back into what are you really lacking. This It comes down to the self-acceptance, it comes down to creating authentic relationships, and really if there isn't something you're so avoiding of, if you can't be with yourself or you can't show up in the world as yourself, how can you expect to have um you know, like real connection with people, right? And that's going to affect your intimacy is going to affect your success. It's going to affect, all areas of your life, because if that inauthenticity is present in your, in this facade of
Mhm.
um, who I think I need to be or who I think others want me to be, um, it like as you say, like people can tune in, they can read some parts, and they're going to be like, oh, if I don't trust this part, if there's something not real here, what other areas are they not real, right? So it starts creating a barrier of distrust right up front, right? So
Mhm.
it's look, there's for some people there's a lot of conditioning where they're even taught, don't talk about things, don't show things, don't do things, don't, whatever, from childhood. So in their adult years it's just magnified, and it's a trained behavior.
Mhm.
But once you become aware that it's not serving, or how it's affecting dynamics in your life, um, it's a matter of being willing to invest to do that work to unwind that, right?
And when you see people who have been doing this and are later interviewed because everything crumbled around them, right? Their little facades just literally crumbled. They always talk about what a relief actually it is. As devastating as it is, they always say it is a relief. Whether it's a secret of a drug addiction, whether it's a secret of something, or whatever that facade that you were protecting, there always is that sense of relief that, okay, I'm now dealing with it. People know, and where do I go from there? And not an easy journey, but it's certainly a journey that you can get through. So there's aspects too of a pass, obviously, that comes because your past has something to do with why you're living this way in some shape or form, I would think as well, Theano.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Our upbringing has a lot of to do with how this plays out. And like for me, for example, being from a European background and culture, there was always like, okay, don't be too loud, don't yell too much, don't, act a certain way, or girls need to be, um, the role, especially coming into relationship. I was a huge people pleaser, so I had this white picket fence life of, oh, as long as I make everyone happy, I'm good, and my needs, my desires don't matter as much as other people's. But at the end of that burned me time and time again, and it's a matter of, it got to a point of, who am I really? What am I about? What do I really want? Because I was so trained to have everyone else's needs and wants but before my own. So when it came to asking myself, I didn't even know. It took me a long time just to discover that. So I in and even in my marriage, like, on the outside it looked okay. Oh, you have this wonderful life and you're taken care of, and he's successful and you're both European or whatever. But behind the scenes, there was a lot of suffering that it was hard to talk about to people, and who would believe me. And, was I the one overreacting? And you question things. So you also fall into this role of like, let me act like everything's okay because I don't even know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I find is people sit in their misery, and when they finally do talk about it, they discover they're not alone.
Yeah.
So that to me is another important part of messaging I want for the audience is no matter what it is, more than likely you are not alone in whatever that is, right? And many times too, these white picket fences that people put up have to do with also closet secrets or family closet secrets. And I know growing up, I observed a lot of that happening. But what it did for me, it was that I did not want any of that in my life,
Yeah.
right? Put it on the table, discuss it. I don't want it. That doesn't mean you don't keep certain things private, right? I distinguish between things that you don't want to share and things that truly are a secret making you suffer, or you have to be on your pins and needles when certain people come around because you didn't want them to know about it. I don't know how. It's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time, And I have never seen a closet secret not hurt somebody.
Well, and I think you touch on a key point, because there's a difference between, respecting family privacy and then suffering, right? So it's one thing when, like, I think that point is when you're suffering silently, um, that's an important indicator that something is off, right? And either you need to seek support, or evaluation, or just open up different discussions to say what is out of alignment here that is fueling this suffering that needs to be addressed, right?
Absolutely. And it's in that vein that more than likely you will not be alone, and you will be able to find someone that is experienced it, knows how to get out of it, can support you, and you really need to reach out. But what does it take? So let's talk about now the choice of there's a choice aspect to this as well. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, like it comes when you're aware, like, okay, of the patterns, and the time, energy, and effort that you're putting into this facade life, and you realize it's really not working for you, or it's not serving um, the fulfillment that you're really looking to live into. It's it's taking your power into that and being like, well, I have a choice to do something about this. And it doesn't mean that it needs to be drastic, or on the other end of the pendulum, but it means that you get to, have the clarity and awareness to shift, and then decide how you're going to go about taking action to live into a more authentic expression of yourself, right? And it
Mhm.
could mean initially just getting support where you have a channel to discuss. It could mean getting help, or training, or therapy. It could mean um, even just the choice of, like, do I stay in this? Is it serving? How, like, making that decisions consciously is
Mhm.
such a huge um, shift in your trajectory in itself.
And we all know there'll be fear in doing that, but it's still you're sitting on a point where you have to say to yourself, am I going to change? Do I wish to change in some way? Right. and
Yeah.
and and I want people to understand, anytime we talk about change, it does we're never really saying 100%. We're saying it's a journey, and but the first thing it starts with is choice. And then you make that choice, and you can make baby steps of change. So I want people, because everybody always thinks it's like a, this change 100%. No, you can take small steps in that change, but you still either have on this side of each side is change or don't change. What happens? What should be the realization if you consciously say, I don't wish to change it. I love my little, whatever bubble I have created.
Well,
So what is that, Theano?
I wouldn't say necessarily that people say I love my book, but I like say, should I get off the pot, right? Like, either you're going to take action, like if you're miserable and behind the scenes suffering, but then putting on this facade, and then complaining and miserable or getting sick, and you choose, like, either it's like, okay, this is not working for me. I want a different life. I want a different way of living. I'm going to take these steps to work towards doing that. It's going to be hard, like, I'm going to say, as you know, right? Like, it's not easy to make change. Okay, the mind will put us back into
Yeah.
the comfort and keep dragging us to being like, that's too scary. You know how to do this. As shitty as it is, you know how to do it, right? This, and the other side of that is, if you're like, okay, I'm too scared to make change. I want it, but I'm here, and I'm going to accept that this is my life, then own that and don't complain. Stop the complaining. Stop, um, you know, just, I'm going to say, staying in the, just find a way to say, okay, I'm choosing this consciously, and I'm going to find a way to make it work that can sustain me in a way that I can find some harmony. Like, so it's
Mhm.
one or the other. And sometimes it takes us a lot of momentum to build up internally to decide to take action to change, right? And that's
Yeah.
work in itself. So we may find ourselves in situations or living a way that we're putting on these facades because and accepting it while still building momentum because it's too much. You
Oh
know,
yeah, it takes a lot of courage. Certain situations. It depends on what. Again, it depends on what's behind that facade that you're protecting, right? That it might take a lot of courage to do it, to make the change. But there's acceptance on both sides. Whether you decide to change, whether you're building up your courage to make that take action, or whether you're just accepting to say, let me make this situation as bearable as possible. Either it's all courageous either way in my mind, but it is, the suffering, the internal suffering is a part that, like anything, you and I would be worried about when that individual is truly suffering and living a day-to-day suffering. That's a hard thing even for others to understand or even to watch
mhm.
occur. It's really hard. So let's talk then about just how should I, to what does this, so what we're saying, it doesn't really serve anything. It doesn't serve you
To
to live in this white picket fence. It doesn't necessarily serve you. If you choose it, perhaps it does, but does it serve in the end?
no, like you know what? You're not hiding, like as much as you're hiding from the world, you're hiding from yourself. And what is that costing you? Right? Like,
Mhm.
um, for some people, it's the quality of the relationship. Sometimes it's their health. Sometimes it's, you know, their careers and and what they settle for, or never pursuing true passions or staying in things because it's the title versus what they really love, and or and which is costing them to work like a dog, let's say, and it's really just not the path that they truly desire. So there's a lot at stake when you don't live into your authenticity.
Mhm.
And sooner or later it catches up with you in one form or another. Like either the concentration of the stress of doing that, it's going to break something else. So sometimes you'll fall into disruptive habits or patterns or escapism. There's a way that it's going to find to play, like, to dilute the weight of the pressure that it's taking. And you just have to be aware, like, is that healthy? What are the ways that I'm compromising to stay in this facade, um, of a life that truly isn't keeping me connected? Like, you get so checked out. You lose your sense of who you are. You lose your sense of what you truly value or what it's about because becomes so external. It's a survival of the perception of everyone else versus, like, it's an outward in versus an inward out creation, right?
But the
And
underlying message that you have there, the underlying theme is self-awareness. That's what
yeah,
I'm hearing as you outline that. It's really about that person becoming very self-aware and starting to reflect on even why they're doing it,
mhm, mhm.
right? Because some people just get into these routines and they may not be truly conscious that they are creating this thing.
No,
Um,
yeah, it becomes very mundane, like autopilot, like a very
abs-
disconnected lifestyle for sure.
So then let's wrap up. What are the last kind of recommendations you have for the audience in terms of their white picket fence life if they are living that and if it
Well,
is a facade?
when I say, like, I always say this quote, like, once you show up in the world as yourself, you never want to be anyone else. Like, we are fascinating people. And when we really get to know ourselves and embody the confidence and the clarity of our signature, I just say our signature expression, like, who am I really? What lights me up? What, you know, impact or, you know, contribution do I want to have in this world? Even if it's just, you know, in the space of your own family. Like, it doesn't have to be, you know, some big mission, but it's like, how do I truly want to live? Like, we get one life, right?
Mhm.
Decide how you really want to live that life, right? And take the steps to, I'm going to say, evaluate, assess how you're living, and, you know, is it keeping me to my true, you know, essence, right? Like,
Mhm.
you know, like my infinite self, like, and, you know, we talked about having this, you know, discussion and, you know, continuing it. Like, there's the infinite self and the relative self. Like, the infinite, it's blissful, it's happy, it's joyful. We come into this world like just so pure, and then over time, it, you know, we have these layers of our environments, our conditioning, experiences that create this relative self of barriers, blocks, whatever that we're needing to work through. So I say people, like, try to notice what blocks are holding you back. Like, just saying, you know, what parts of my life, because it could be compartmentalized, are behind a white picket fence? What steps would it look like to start taking action to do it differently?
Mhm.
You know, I say, you shift the ship 1 nautical mile, it ends up on a different island altogether, right? So even the small shifts create a different outcome in the long term. So don't think
Mhm.
it matter.
That so we actually have I don't know if he's still there. Kyle, are you still there on the chat? We'll see if he's still there. He had put up, "Hey Jen, thank you for having this discussion." So there you go. So I'm just seeing if he's so great to see him. But it is an important discussion because as
And I
okay, hi.
did it come on?
Yeah, he did come on. So what are some of your thoughts, Kyle? Is it making you think of certain situations perhaps? Or people you know? For me, it's people, you know, some people I know or okay, no problem. He says he's on his phone, so he's lagging
Okay.
in terms of when he writes and when he chats up. So yeah, when you get a moment, just put what your thoughts of the discussion.
And I think that's the important piece that you
Yep.
mentioned is, like, you know, reaching out for help, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when something, you know, resonates, and if this lands for people, like, start looking for the support channels that can help you explore this more, right? Maybe it's even confident friends who you can ask, like, where do you see me being inauthentic? Where do you see me holding a facade, right?
Right.
You know, that's a beautiful place to start if you can't see it within yourself, because it allows you then to be like, oh, like, I thought I was living authentically in that space and it's being experienced this way. Let me take a look at that. And sometimes you just discover things like, wow, I'm actually playing out this here too and wasn't even aware. Do I want to, and again, coming back into choice then, do I want to change this? Do, you know, do I want to do something different here? Right.
Absolutely. And on that note, we're going to wrap up the discussion. It's a very important. If you are doing it, just try to figure out what some of the triggers or the whys of why you feel you need to do it. First of all, because it may be only in your head. It may not be in anything else, but you believing you need to do this. And try to see to what degree you can move to be more authentic. Until you've done that journey, you wouldn't really understand how uplifting and refreshing, and I think the important word, how light it is for yourself when you live authentically. It truly is a light feeling, And it's a feeling of elevation because all these types of things weigh you down. It really does. It gives you a heavy, a heavy aura. It makes you feel heavy. And really, what we're striving for is to get up each day and just be like little butterflies. We want to be light that way. That's my favorite little, they're my favorite things are butterflies, but I always amaze at how light they are. And let's try to emulate that in the way we carry ourselves, in the things we do. And that's through authenticity. So on that note, Thean, I'm going to wrap up. Oh, let's see what Kyle wrote. One sec, he did write. It's too much for me to show. But Kyle said, I'm living this life where I'm in a job I don't like, but I need to pay the bills. I understand this 100%. I definitely need to reach out and be true to my authentic self, but I need to pay my bills at the same time because I have a young family. So what do you say to someone like that, Theano? I have so much going through my head in response, but I'll let you respond to that.
For me, that was me as well for a period of time. But, a lot of it, I'll say, is also a story in our head, right? Like, we're limiting the possibilities because of that script. I need this because I need to pay for this. It's like, how else can this look? What else can is it starting a course at night? Is it doing something at the side? Is it just taking the leap and saying, you know what, I don't like this. And, I'm going to say I'm going to save 3 months or 6 months of, savings somehow, or take a loan and jump into what I really love and put everything, in when I do it. The one thing about people, like, we're resilient. And when we're in a place of needing to create and build something, we find the strength and power to create it when there's no alternative, especially when we have people to support around us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So for me, like, it's just, what's the one small action? Like, first of all, are you clear of what it is you'd love to do? And if you are, what is a step in that direction? Just one step towards that, right? I look at it as if we have our future self, as the future you, who already has, he's doing his dream job, he's supporting his family, what is he doing? Get really visceral of what it feels, tastes, smells, sounds like to live into that. And what advice would he be giving you right now? He's already living in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice is he telling you is step one to start taking to get there? Right?
Absolutely. It definitely is a story. And it's never easy to take that first step. It really is truly a step of blind faith. And that's what I always call it. And we play these stories and say, I can't make the change. And I was there just 2 years ago in terms of, well-paying job, have the sole breadwinner for a very large family. All right. And thinking, no, you can't leave because you need that. But I made certain sacrifices. I really did, to make that pivot. And I would never look back now. Like, I can't even imagine going back. Mm-hmm. So it's not about money. It's really about believing in yourself and taking a small step. That doesn't mean, I never say to anybody, quit your job. That is nonsense, right? Like, you keep the job, but you plan a side, some people say side hustle to try to get to closer to where you wish to do. And through that side work, you connect with people that will help also propel you. So it's kind of getting together with like minds of wherever you wish to go. But the first thing is to know, where do I wish to go?
Yeah, the clarity is
and then you take that blind faith step and then keep going. And yes, you'll be balancing two things, but your aim is that the thing you love to do starts to rise and make what you're doing fall behind. And at some point you'll be able to quit and to do what you really love to do. But just sitting and saying that you can't is still not going anywhere. So that's the balance that people have to come and just sit back and go, okay, I could keep playing this story, or I could try to do something about it, no matter how small that something is.
Yeah.
And I always encourage to take small steps towards what you want. So hopefully that helps, Kyle. And thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate it. See how very different it is when there's chats there going on, activity. So we, as I said, we will wrap up. Theano, again, thanks for. This was great, actually. This was a good conversation, and we will see you next month, because we have these discussions once a month on a Tuesday, 7 a.m. Usually the third week. It's usually the third or fourth thing. So thank you so much, Carl Says. I'm taking a class right now. I'm still trying to get into a better program at my job. I am working towards a better life. It's just happening slower than I anticipated. Thank you so much for your advice on taking small steps.
You know what? I think that's fabulous.
It is fabulous. Like, like this is what I do. It's fabulous.
One thing, Kyle, I'd like to say is celebrate yourself along the way. So you're actually rewiring your neurological pathways through the small celebrations of, I'm taking this course. I'm, even if it's just going to class and being like, I'm doing something to celebrate my momentum towards this change. Or you complete the course, do something for yourself, finding, creating a connection. Celebrate all the wins, no matter how big or small, because it's actually patterning the brain differently.
The other thing, too, that I would say to Kyle, so Kyle, now that you're working, the first thing you need to implement, and perhaps hopefully you're already doing it, but what I will tell you is every paycheck, you pay yourself first. And I don't care if it's $10, $20, doesn't matter. You pay yourself first, because that accumulation of those funds are going to help you take more classes or do anything else and go towards your dream. So whatever it is you're trying to build. So please get into the habit of paying yourself first. So that's the one. I think you'll see over time how much that pays off. But get into that habit. Far too times when you feel you're struggling, you pay everybody else and there's nothing left for you. But you have to do self-love. And the first thing is starting even with your money to pay yourself first towards your courses and everything else that you will need. Okay? So that's great. And yes, celebrate. That's fantastic news. So on that note, I mean, great way to end is just to see that people are starting to implement some of these things. So sometimes we feel like we're talking to ourselves, but we're actually touching people, and that's wonderful to see. So this is fantastic. On that note, everybody have a wonderful Tuesday, and we'll be here next month with a whole new topic and a whole new discussion.
Awesome.